What's happening, YouTube? It's Simon466 Cards, and today I'm going to expand on the video you see here. I had made it 3 to 4 weeks ago. It was about local card shops and whether or not they were that important to the hobby. But really, the video was about how content creators, people in the hobby, had this way of thinking about this is the way it was when I was younger and I was as a kid, and thus it must be this way going forward, without realizing that the world has changed in the 15, 20, 30 years since when they were a kid, and that we need to evolve our thinking about the hobby as well, and what to expect from it and how it can grow. So that is a segue into my video about really this assumption that the way things were in the past is the way that things will be in the future. And it's just, the world has changed. Society has evolved. It's much more technologically based. And here's what I'm, and so I'm going to jump into this video. The first one here is from Rob from Burbank Sportscards. And I should preface this 100%. Everything I'm about to say is not a personal attack on anybody mentioned in the video or anybody who thinks this way. It's just that their thinking is based off of when they were younger. And that's a very common thing to do when you're trying to think about kids of the present day, is to think about yourself as a kid in the past. But you should really just think about kids in the present, period, and not think about the past if things, the economy, how the world operates has fully changed technology wise, right? So let's jump into this.
That is priority 1, 2, and 3 is grassroots, getting packs into kids' hands.
So he's talking about how getting kids in the hobby will grow the hobby. Makes sense. No real issue with that.
And getting that first taste. Once you open a pack, there's nothing better.
Yeah, again, kids love opening packs, and I assume that they still do. I remember when I was a kid that they loved it. And you see a bunch of videos of kids on YouTube opening packs and they're having a blast. So again, this is all great.
Get packs where moms spend money. Get stuff at supermarket.
So now he's talking about supermarkets and making sure that cards are available there for moms to get them for their kids. Here's the thing. They, as far as I can tell, sell them at Target and they sell them at Walmart. So they are in, these big box outlets. So we are doing what he's asking. Let's continue.
Get packs at 7-Eleven.
So this is the first difference. When Rob was younger, I assume, which is roughly the same time I was a kid, there were definitely packs at gas stations, 7-Elevens, convenience stores, corner stores, all that type of stuff. That's no longer the case today, and honestly, I don't expect that to change. But by and large, we're like, the hobby and cards are in major retailers like Walmart and Target and those type of places. So it does accomplish what Rob's talking about here, but because we're not in the smaller places like convenience stores, gas stations, 7-Elevens, etc., Rob is stuck on that because that's different from when he was younger, and so he thinks that is the key to growth. When in fact, all the stuff has moved online because it's no longer 1992, right? And so that's the first fallacy in his logic, that it must be the way it was when he was younger. Let's continue.
Get where packs are synonymous. Where you ever go to shop, there's an opportunity to buy a pack.
So here's the other thing. Wherever we go to shop, that is the internet now. And packs and boxes and wax and whatever, it's all there. But in his mind, he's still thinking brick and mortar retail, right? And he hasn't evolved with, it is now 2023. I don't know what the proportion of transactions are, but it's a big number that's online compared to zero in the junk wax era and beyond, right? So that's again the fallacy of this is what it must be like, because, and he's leaning solely on what it was like when he was younger.
A $2 pack and get it to the hands of kids, but we need to price it, and that's the
So here's the thing. He's talking about getting $2 packs. Well, if you go online, a pack of Topps 1 Series 1 costs $4.50. NBA Hoops costs $4. So, I mean, it's not $2, but is anything $2 in this economy with inflation? Like, let's be honest here. So it's like, again, these are products that are readily available to kids at a very cheap price point. Here's the difference, though. I'm assuming Rob is referring to a time in like the 90s when all packs, by and large, were the same price, and every kid could buy any pack that they had, that they wanted to, right? Whether it was Upper Deck or Fleer or Score or Fleer Ultra, whatever it was, they were all roughly a couple bucks. That is no longer the case now. There's, Hoops and Top Series 1, but there's also the higher end stuff, right? There's Prism, National Treasures, Flawless, 3 and 2, 1 and 1, etc. Topps Chrome, all of those premium products. And so, yeah, for sure, that is way more than $2 a pack. But if you're like, Rob's conflating the two here because he's talking about getting packs into kids. Now he's specifying what type of packs, right? There's plenty of hoops available. Kids can open them for days and days and days if they wanted to at a pretty reasonable price. That's not the same thing that he's talking about. Now he's talking about something else, and let's see what he does here.
Second thing is we can't have 4X products out the chute with no return on investment.
So here's the thing. First of all, we were talking about kids, but now it's talking about return on investment. But before, we were talking about kids and getting them into the hobby. So he's done this logical thing, like this logical leap in his head where the desire to get kids in the hobby is now changed into return on investment, which is more of an investor type, which should not be as much about getting kids excited about cards. And so he's doing these logical leaps to basically say, we must lower prices and make it so that every type of pack is at a price point that is available to all kids, like when I was younger. And so, but like there's now been like there's two different types of people in the hobby, at least, right? There's the just people having fun like kids, and there's like the investor type, and then those people will buy the higher end stuff. But he's conflating the two to justify it must be the way it was when I was younger. And so that's why I think he's missing the mark a little bit with his video. And again, it's not an attack on him. It's just this whole, we need to get packs in corner stores and 7-Elevens and gas stations. We don't need to do that. I just flat out do not agree. And also, we need packs that are affordable. It's like, we do have those. It's just not all of them are affordable. But that breaks his mental model of when he was younger, and everything was affordable. So this is, again, someone leaning too heavily on when I was younger. This is the way it was, and that's the way it should be because that's when the last big boom was. I don't agree because the world has changed, the hobby has changed, and how we operate has changed. So that's the first one. The second one, and again, I find Rob, from what I can see from his content, just super high energy, super positive for the hobby. He seems like a great guy. No issues with him. It's just in this case, this is one of the places or instances where he's relying too much on his anecdotal evidence or his memory of how things were, and that must still be the way things are done. And the thing is that the world has changed. Next. This is someone else on YouTube. His name is AIH Sports. Again, nothing I'm about to say about him or his video is a shot at him. It's just, I think he's missing a big point about how things are no longer the way you are when you're a kid. It is how the society as a whole has evolved technologically wise, whatever the right word is there, and that we must adapt how we think about the hobby. Let's get into it.
Now, I have to look at it from when I grew up as a kid.
Why? Why do we need to do that? Why can't we think about kids today just as they are? All right. And again, this is all when I was a kid, this is the way it used to be, yada, yada, yada. He here in this video is talking about growing the hobby and getting more people into sports cards. Just for some context there.
Right? First of all, before I get into that, in order to get people into cards, sports cards, they need to be watching sports at a young age, right?
So he's making the right assumption that most people who like sports cards are going to like sports, and we need to get people watching sports. I agree with that, and we'll talk about why later. But there is one big assumption he's making.
And you have to remember, these days, a lot of the sports are on cable. Okay, I discussed this with my buddy John.
So he goes on to talk a little bit about basically cable is where sporting events, games are being shown. They're not on basic cable. They're on cable. But he's kind of missing the point that there's a lot of cable cutters out there. Like if you know anything about media, you know that cable cutting the cord and going over the air and like all that kind of stuff. That's been a trend that's been happening for the last 5-10 years. And so the fact that something on the cable that's not readily available to someone is not new. This has been something that's been happening for many, many years. So that's the first bit here.
Time last year, and he discussed that, hey, look, if you want to watch the Nationals, he's a Nationals fan, you can only get that on cable.
Yes. So again, just because a game is only available on cable doesn't mean that kids don't have access to it. And I'm going to explain that in a second. I'm going to jump forward ahead in the video for a little bit and really hear his thoughts on cable here.
How can you grow a bunch of people, or how can you get a bunch of people in the hobby when you have all of these games on cable, right? Not everyone has access to cable.
You're right. That is 100% correct. Not everybody has access to cable. That's the whole point of cord cutting and people watching less cable TV or even network TV for that matter, right? The ratings for network TV from now compared to years ago have declined by a very large percent, right? It's because they're switching to alternative ways to watch things. And so AIH Sports here, he's relying on the fact that you must watch cable because to become a sports fan, to become a fan of your local sports team, because that's the way that he did it. That's the way his friends did it. That's how I got into sports, etc., etc. But the problem is there are so many other ways to watch sports now. And think about the attention span of any kid and what their day-to-day is. Attention span's much shorter. I think we'd all agree on that. Plus, they always have some kind of tablet or device in their hands, right? Generally. So AIH Sports, he was asking, where can kids watch and follow sports if they don't have cable because their parents cut the cord and like there's limited access and the cable's expensive and yada, yada, yada. Well, I mean, YouTube is my first reaction. Like, they literally have every single game and their highlights. Everybody has access to the internet, right? If you can't, like, it's much more readily available. The internet is much more readily available now than cable was 30 years ago, right? So you look at any of these games, Clippers and Suns, 800,000 views. And I'm recording this on February the 18th during the All-Star weekend, but you can look at any of these videos and they're all in the 100,000s unless it's like the Bulls and the Pacers. And even then it's at 90K, Spurs and Hornets, 90K. These are literally two of the worst teams in the league, and they're still getting 90,000 views on a 9-minute video that shows all the highlights. This is how kids and the new generation consume sports. They don't necessarily need to watch a full 2.5-hour game because of their short attention span and the fact they have a tablet, right? They can consume all this type of content and become fans without cable. It's completely fine. Like, look at this, Wizards and Warriors. 700,000 people watches 9-minute video showing the highlights. I watch these all the time for the Sixers, who are my favorite team. And so, like, Pelicans Thunder with no Zion, like, it still had 100,000 views. Magic Bulls, who's watching that? Apparently 93,000 people are. Like, Jazz Pacers, 165,000, which is way more than I would have ever thought, right? And so that's for NBA. Same thing for hockey. Again, I'm recording this on February 18th. So these games were, as of yesterday, 23,000 here for Penguins Islanders. Like, tens of thousands of people watch these every single day, every single game. That makes this way more accessible than 25 years ago. You can click a button and watch this immediately. Same thing for the NFL. This is Week 18 highlights. Look at these. All these have 500,000 at least to, I guess nobody cared about the Carolina Saints game. Sorry, Dustin. But all these games have a million-ish views, more or less, right? Unless it's, some crappy game. But plenty of people are consuming sports highlights. But it's just, again, it's different than the way that AIH Sports is used to consuming when he was a kid. He doesn't realize that kids now can consume sports content that can still turn them into sports fans in a much different way. And this, I'm going to 2022 baseball highlights. So obviously I'm recording this in February 2023. These are from a few months ago, but this is the end of September. Reds versus Pirates. From what I understand, both teams, I don't follow baseball as much, both teams not very good. Still 20,000 fans viewed. Reds versus Pirates here, 35,000 people viewed. You get a Red Sox versus Yankees, much bigger thing. 250,000 people watched this, again, 7-8 minute clip. Sporting content is readily available and easier to access, I would say, now than it was 30 years ago if you want to watch it. So I just don't agree that this is a problem, that lack of access to sports content is making fewer sports cards fans, right? So that's my spiel on that. Now let's get into the last thing here, and AIH Sports' idea on how to fix this quote-unquote problem.
If I were Fanatics, right, what would I try to do? I would try to use, or I try to work with sports teams to be like, hey, look, why don't we try to sponsor or pay half of the load to get the kids to the games, and then on top of it, there could be some sort of marketing sponsorship for Fanatics where you give the kids, a pack of cards. I think something like that would help.
So this is this doesn't, I'll just be blunt, this doesn't make sense business wise, and I'm going to explain why with a chart. So here is his mental model, and I agree with this mental model. There is an entire population of people, so all 7-8 billion, whatever the number is, of people in the universe or in the world, and then that's everybody. Some proportion of that will become baseball fans or sports fans. I have baseball here, but I should have put sports. So type on my part. And then some portion of that will become sports cards fans. But the thing is, he's calling for a solution for Fanatics to help convert the population to sports fans. But why would you do that? Why wouldn't you focus on this group being converted to sports cards fan down here? This is the problem with his mental model. He's trying to do two things at once: create baseball fans and sports cards fans. And I don't think that makes sense, because companies should only focus on growing their own segments. They're not here to grow other people's business, right? And he's trying to do both with this ticket thing where you give people, why is Fanatics paying for tickets to bring fans into ballparks? That should be what the leagues do, right? So who profits from each of these groups growing? Who profits from having more baseball fans, from having more sports fans, right? Again, I got a typo there. But who grows the most, or who profits from having more sports fans from the entire population? Well, the answer is obvious. It's the NBA, it's Major League Baseball, it's the NFL. If you have more sports fans, then these groups will make more money. But that doesn't really help you as Fanatics if you're down here. Because the only way Fanatics makes money is if you have more people down here. Doing this basically for, pardon the somewhat controversial statement, trickle-down economics model doesn't really make a lot of sense or is very effective. Don't focus on this arrow when you're Fanatics. You need to focus on this arrow. You need to take existing baseball fans, existing basketball fans, existing football fans, and turn them into sports card fans. That's your job. Your job is not to turn people into sports fans. That's these guys' job. That's Roger Goodell's job. That's David. What's his name? Adam Silver's job. That's Rob Manfred. He's terrible, so he won't be able to do anything. But this is the job of the leagues, to grow the sports and increase the number of sports fans. The job of Fanatics is not to grow the number of sports fans. The job of Fanatics, for them to make money, is to grow the number of sports card fans. And I think that is the big problem with what AIH Sports is saying. And again, it all comes back to his mental model of, I need to have people watching the games live, whether either on cable or in the stands, to then become sports card fans. And the thing is, the world has changed. Technology has changed the way that you can grow your market, such as YouTube videos, such as some other things, right? And so now let's take a look to see, and I feel like this clip is all over the internet, but let's see what Michael Rubin of Fanatics says.
And here's the craziest thing. This business has never been marketed. There's never been any marketing in this business, okay? There's never been any more product innovation. I'm telling you right now, to every collector out there, the 12 months I've won right now, we will do more for this industry that's been done in the last 7 years. I'm not arrogant, pretty humble.
So, I mean, that does sound somewhat arrogant, but that's neither here nor there. Obviously, he's a wildly successful businessman. And so he's saying, we're going to do all sorts of new stuff. We're going to do all sorts of marketing. And what's the first thing I see? I see Julio Rodriguez, biggest young star in the game today, doing this. Right? He's doing all...
Welcome back to the show. You know what time it is.
Oh, it must be time for...
He's wearing a Topps chef hat, holding a baseball pack. What he's really doing, and this is what Michael Rubin is doing, he's talking about, is he is trying to turn Julio Rodriguez fans, who are baseball fans, and turning them into sports cards fans. This is exactly what he's doing as the CEO, or as the whatever his title is, of Fanatics. Is he's working on growing this arrow. This is what he's doing. Julio fans, come on. You don't know about sports cards? Let me try and get you hooked in by having a fun little parody video of Julio Rodriguez holding a pack of Topps Series 1. And so that's the video, but it's just to show how we're getting, or some people in the hobby, and again, not a knock on them, like, this is a logical fallacy that happens to people, not just in the hobby, but in business, in real life. It's that times have changed. The way we consume content has changed. The way we buy things have changed. The way we grow the hobby has, as a result, also changed. And so you can't get stuck thinking about, this is the way things were when I was younger, and that's still the way that we need to grow the hobby today. It's a whole new world. Technology's involved. You can do things much differently. So, like, let's start to think more outside the box of what's possible in 2023 with the 2023 technology that exists today. So that's the video. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, please give me a like, or like the video, or whatever the people on YouTube say. And if you haven't subscribed and you found this interesting, please subscribe. And as we always do on my channel here, we preview the next video, and it is related to Fanatics as well. So next time, we're going to talk about how nobody knows anything about what's happening at Fanatics, so just stop listening to the rumors, just wait for the news. And with that, I will thank you for watching and listening to this video. I hope you found it useful, insightful, thought-provoking, and I would love to hear your comments of whether or not you agree with me. I can also be found on Instagram at the same handle, Simon466cards. So thanks once again, and I will talk to you later. Cheers.